Just to throw this at you though, Tom.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of what you're doing, you're instantly, I'm aware that you're going to have to tell us. You're not going to just be able to start, are you? You're going to have to think about how you're going to introduce it.
Yeah. So we're trying to develop a way in which we can play seamlessly without stopping or having to hold up, cards or anything like we did last time. We're trying to develop a means to kind of communicate. We're only at a kind of basic level at the moment, but we're trying to work out so everyone's got a chance to read what we're doing. And then we signal when we're ready to kind of sign off for the next person. So that's the kind of the thought. So we want to do it completely pitch black when we do it, and we want the audience in the middle, the three of us. But yeah, that's the kind of thinking. So, cool. So I'm just going to start with it. I'm going to start with the chord structure, and then when I signal over to someone else, they take on a new chord structure, and we all start to work into that. And then we'll come to an end after about 5 minutes, and we work out how to end it this time as well.
CSM.
There was a bit in the middle where there wasn't much going on, and it was just like, play that to people while they're setting down for a nap, and you've got an audience right there.
Okay.
It just sent them right off because it was just really pretty easy listening to music.
Okay.
And that was the best bit of it for me because it was pretty.
No, fair enough.
There wasn't too much going on.
It was pretty.
It
Fair
was.
enough.
It was.
It was nice, yeah.
It was just chilled.
listening. I like the transition between the the grand piano and obviously the electrical thing. I think the guitar, obviously you're all very good instrumentalists. I think the guitar could have done with a bit of modulation. Like I know you were pissing about a little bit with the voices on there as you were going along as well. I think that would be quite nice to see with the guitar as well. So maybe get like an FX pedal and just scroll through some like different voices and that. Obviously you can't do that on the piano, but having that like constant, obviously because you start off, Tom, you've got that sort of like constant sort of. This is sort of like the. It's also you're almost using the piano as a drum, even though you're not really keeping a beat with it as such. You see what I mean? So that's like the rock steady, and then you've got the two different sort of like voices. That works for me.
Yeah, okay. I think maybe kind of similar to what Max said, a bit of variation in the instrumentation a bit, because like I don't know. I mean, because you got the piano, maybe the piano can do other things, but you guys can talk about the synthesizer.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe a bit of variation on the instrumentation. Besides that, it was really nice.
Yeah.
Really, really nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So this isn't going to sound like a rude question, but it might sound rude, so I apologise for that. But why would you think that people would like this?
Well, that's what I was thinking about with the kind of experience from the audience. I don't want a group of people just sat there watching three guys playing. And I think that the way it's set at the moment is quite close to that. So
Right.
that's why we were talking about how we could make this more interesting for an audience, and that's where the let's do it in pitch black idea comes from. And also let's have us at three corners of the room and have people in the middle,
Yeah.
so that they're kind of immersed in what's happening.
Yeah.
They can try and then pick up on the communication that's going on, because we're not going to be overtly open about how we communicate with each other.
Okay. I've got to be honest.
I think it's so far.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I think there's some nice ideas there in terms of the concept. In terms of what we're listening to, it's massively limited.
Yeah.
In terms of the kind of harmonic language you're using, it's very, very staid. And actually, I think what I hear is that in a sense gets in the way of the process that you're trying to
They can do, yeah.
do, because actually what we hear is just a bunch of quite sweet but very, very classic sounding chord progressions.
Yeah.
Part of this is coming out, I think, in the instrumentation stuff, but I think part of it, there's kind of quite stylised things that you're doing, and in a sense what we hear is just some very kind of nondescript music. We don't hear what you're trying to do as a kind of process. It's really getting in the way of that, so it just sounds like a bunch of guys just kind of jamming and noodling, which isn't what I don't think it's not what you're trying to do.
I'm not trying to do that.
So my feeling is about this is maybe you should actually pitch it more formally as a set of experiments.
Yeah.
So that we really hear that, and actually it becomes very, very obvious that what you're doing is using some very traditional formats, and traditional sounds, and traditional licks, as a way of getting into some experiments, but that we're really confronted with that.
Yeah.
Yeah? Go on.
The way it was going there, if you wanted to do a sort of the experiment improvisational thing, that's all good, go for that. The way it was sounding there, it looked like it was going, it could use visuals and go on a Jim and Sam Man route from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And give it some pretty visuals.
I was thinking that too.
And make it an experience.
Yeah, it could be. You could do something in that regard. I mean, I think this is the thing that you're really in the danger of, because you're using just quite sort of sweet major, minor, and then kind of pentatonic stuff that's going on. Not to be too fine a point, it just sounds very boring. Okay. And I think one way that you can get around something that sounds boring is put some visuals with it. But
I think it's better not to have it boring.
But like I said, I don't think you're not. The trouble is, the reason you're saying that, I think, is because it sonically sounds a bit the same.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it sounds like this is actually incidental to what you're trying to do. That's what.
Yeah,
That's the
we
problem
wanna
for
do
me.
Yeah.
Is that you're actually trying to do
musicianship
something.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They need
Yeah.
to
What
change
it
that.
sounds like is my uncle and his mates jamming, which is massively boring. But actually, what you're interested in is how musical structures can work. So you just, I think, one of the things you're going to have to do a lot of head scratching about is how do I present that? How do we present that as something? Because that in itself is interesting. You know, the fact that you're saying how can you compose a piece of music by using some kind of fairly conventional methods? I can buy that. That's not what you're projecting at the moment, so you've got this kind of disconnect basically. So I think you really need to have a good think about that. Maybe you do it, maybe you sort of have this thing where you say, right, we're going to live compose 3 pieces and we're going to use 3 different strategies. And you talk us through those strategies and you think about that stuff. And that's what I'm saying in terms of how you present it to us basically. Yeah?
Yeah, well, so with this the communication element, we had a really hard time because we spent quite a lot of time just we were really struggling with how, well, if you're trying to musically communicate, how you do it.
Yeah.
With it being separate from just a part of your playing, because we're
Yeah.
trying to listen out for these cues all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, was that just something you're playing and you're trying to tell me something? It's
Yeah.
the hardest thing. And if we could get more of, if we could, if we could do it in a more easier way, then there's loads of more stuff you can communicate, but we're struggling just to have those kind of basic commands go back and forth at the moment. Even then it was kind of like this.
I wonder, sorry Max, just quickly though, but I wonder if you almost think about being in a band, being in this jamming situation, and you think, what things run through my mind when someone does certain, X, Y, or Z?
Yeah.
And it's almost like you try and identify those, because that's what I mean in terms of kind of turning this into an experiment. I also think there's a kind of music workshop thing in here that you could be saying, is that when you're in the room playing, what kind of things run through your mind? Well, actually what we've done is we've isolated 4 of these things that people do, and we're looking at that as a technique. So it's almost like, we're listening to you, we're watching you explore that thing under a microscope.
Yeah.
But maybe that would be one way to think about it. Don, Max?
I was going to say, one way you could get around that is by using different, because I know you're quite mathematical anyway, Tom, using different mathematical equations in order to figure out which bars you each change on. So each one would have a different way of thinking. So you do like one which is like your standard, I don't know, a change every 32 bars or something, or a change every 16 bars, and then the next one it progresses. So you change, the first change is it, like 32, then 16, then 8, then 4, then 2, and then it gets faster and the progressions become quicker or something like that. And you could like play around with like sort of like the mathematics of the music in that respect.
Yeah.
That might be an easy way to do it in the dark, because all you're listening for is you're just listening for the change of bars rather than signals of any kind.
Yeah, and you could have just someone that's part of your gang that is actually your kind of light engineer. So you bring the lights up, you talk about it, you sort of say this is what we're doing. Okay, lights go down, you do another little mini set, do your thing.
Yeah.
I wonder almost if you just do that, actually, the 3 of you, but because in a sense this is your baby, I guess, this project. If you do that, actually be quite disciplined about it in your rehearsals, saying, right, now we're going to try this.
Right.
And do that global thing where you record it and not necessarily go through it then, but you then have a kind of analysis session where you're sitting down and listening to it and watching it, going, right, how does that work? Because I think it does feel like that's where the teeth of this project are. It's you're analysing musical processes. It just so happens that you're playing music as well.
Yeah.
But actually, what you're doing is some little kind of applied research. Like I said, in terms of an education project, I think it's really, really interesting. So, I think there's definitely some mileage there. Can you do that for next time?
Yeah. Well, when's the next performance?
It's going to be in about 3 weeks. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.